everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. This chocolate covered strawberry illustration. They're kind of in the shape of a heart for Valentine's Day, and they have little heart sprinkles on them and in the sky. But if you're finding this video not around Valentine's Day, you could leave off the sprinkles or just do circle sprinkles, maybe in different colors. You could leave out the hearts in the sky, whatever you want to do. It's also just a very cute drawing without that. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer exclusive tutorials over on Patreon, so that's linked in the description below if you want to check that out. If you join us over there, you get access to exclusive tutorials every month, along with sneak peeks of what we're drawing over here on YouTube. And if you join right now, you get access to all of the tutorials that I've posted thus far, and it really helps support me as I continue to make free tutorials here on YouTube. But before I get started on today's drawing, the only thing that you'll need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just save the file to your iPad and then double tap it or click on it and click open in Procreate, and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the tutorial today. And then I will post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen here and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we'll get started. Okay, this is the color palette that we'll be using today, so let's just go ahead and get started. We are going to first set our background color to this first color on the first row, and then the two next to it are going to complete our background at the end, but we'll use those later. So to set our background color to this first color, we're going to go to our layer menu, click on this background color layer, and select that first color on the first row of the color palette to set it to that color. And then we are going to go straight into drawing our strawberries. So we are going to be back on layer 1 here on our layer menu. Just make sure we're there. Grab our strawberry color, which is the fourth one on the top row. And we are going to grab our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab to get us started. My opacity for the brush is at 100, size will do 30. And I'm going to zoom out here and create just a kind of vertical oval, but pretty thick oval. So I'm going to do a good oval shape, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Click the edit ellipse button at the top if you would like to, and you can adjust this a little bit, but we want it to be mostly up and down, but it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you just kind of want to try to line these two blue dots up on top of each other, like so. But a good size like this, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it in, and then we're going to just adjust the shape of it to look more like a strawberry. So to do that, we'll grab this with our arrow tool, and we'll switch it to warp. And then we're just going to take the top two corners out a little bit. So this top right one, I'll drag kind of straight out. Top left one kind of straight out. And then our bottom corners will drag in a little bit as well. So it gets a little pointier there. So this looks a lot more like a strawberry. Then we'll just switch back to uniform, and it kind of like reassesses this whole thing. But we are just going to go ahead and turn that arrow tool off. And this is our strawberry shape. Nice and rounded, nice and pretty. But we're going to use this to create our chocolate as well. So I'm going to go to my layer menu and make a duplicate of this layer 1. So slide to the left on it and duplicate. Grab the top one. And we are going to grab our chocolate color, the first one on the second row. And go back to our layer menu. This layer at the top, I'm just going to click on it and turn on alpha lock, and then click on it and click fill layer. So this recolors it to this chocolate color. You could drag and drop the color, but sometimes that leaves like a fuzzy edge. So I just wanted to make sure we get every single pixel this brown color. So that's why we do the alpha lock instead. And then I'm going to click on that and turn alpha lock off. So then next I'm just going to grab my selection tool, switch it to a rectangle, make sure color fill is turned off. I'm going to start outside on the top left of my shape and drag down maybe like a third or so onto my strawberry shape. Okay, so you see that little selection there, selecting the top part. Let's just grab it with your arrow tool and drag that straight off the screen like so. And now we don't want it to be this, straight line, but that just kind of got us started. And now we're going to maybe erase or add to it with our brush to make kind of a wavy line on the top. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool, which is also set to the monoline brush at 30%, and start kind of a wavy pattern. So I might start down a little bit here and kind of do something like this, or whatever you want to do. And I just always kind of try to draw pretty quickly, and that usually helps get a good wavy line or a good smooth line. Okay, then we just want to erase everything else that we have left. So we don't want to use our eraser the entire time, but if we go back to our selection tool and switch it to automatic, we can tap into this upper area that we have left, maybe even drag on the screen to increase the threshold so it selects it selects like everything that you can, and then grab that with our arrow tool and again drag it off the canvas. And then you might be left with like a fuzzy little line still on the top and bottom around the selection. So go ahead and erase that with your eraser. Okay, now we have our little chocolate piece. So the only thing I'm going to do also is just make it a teeny bit bigger. So I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool on uniform. I'm going to increase this size just a smidge. Make sure snapping's turned on in the bottom left and just recenter it on our strawberry where we see the blue line pop up. And that just kind of makes it look like it's a little bit thicker than our strawberry is. So it's just going off the edge on each side just a smidge. So that looks great. And then this is essentially the same shape that we're going to use for the other one. Everything else will be separate. So like the swirl that we make and the seeds and stuff, I don't want those to be identical, but we want our shapes to be identical. So we did the hard part there to make the shapes nice. So on our layer menu, I'm just going to select both of these. So select one, slide right on the other, click group, and then I am going to slide to the left on this group at the top and click duplicate. My dark chocolate one's going to be on top. My light chocolate one's going to be on the bottom. Do whichever one you prefer though. So I'm going to leave my dark chocolate one on top here, selected this group, the top group, grab it with my arrow tool on uniform. We're not going to change the size necessarily, but we're going to rotate it to the left a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of place it over to the left here, like so. And we'll do some more moving around, so don't worry yet. But I'm going to go back to my other bottom group, find our chocolate layer, click on it and turn on alpha lock so that we can recolor it to our white chocolate, which is going to be the third color on the second row. So find that, go back to our layer menu, click on this layer and click fill layer. Grab the top group section that has our white chocolate strawberry in it. Grab that with our arrow tool, rotate it to the right, and kind of line it up here as well. So I'm going to do some more rotating for both of them. So I'll go back to my dark chocolate one too, re-rotate, kind of line their bottoms up a little bit to kind of try to form like somewhat of a heart shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but something like this. Once we have them in place, the only other thing is if you need to resize them, just make sure to resize them at the same time. So select one group, slide right on the other group at the top like this to select both of them. Grab them with your arrow tool on uniform, and then you can resize them and move them around as one or something. So I also have snapping turned on in the bottom left, as I said earlier, and if we have both of them selected and then we center it on this vertical yellow line, that means we're directly in the center of the canvas from left to right. And then I'm down a little further than what would be centered horizontally. Or what would be centered vertically. So my horizontal yellow line is here. I'm down a little bit from that on my vertical yellow line though. But I think that these look good as they are, but do any more rotating if you would like to, and then we'll work on them individually now. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn my top group off and stick on my white chocolate layer. So I'm going to find the strawberry layer first. That's part of this white chocolate group. Click on that layer and turn on alpha lock so we can do a little bit of recoloring and stuff. So our base color for the chocolate, or for the strawberry, was the fourth color on the top row. So I'm just going to grab the next one, slightly darker, fifth on the top row. And the brush that we're going to use to make some texture is going to be under the drawing category, the Oberon brush. My opacity for the brush is at 100. My size will do at like 30 or so. And we're really just going to add some kind of texture with this. We'll go back and add some shadows later, but for on the whole strawberry. So we're just going to add some of this darker color to the right side. I'm going pretty light, but it adds some good texture, maybe even around the top and edge and stuff, and then around our chocolate as well a little bit. Again, we'll create like a deeper shadow, but this is just going to kind of add some initial texture through the strawberry there. So I'm going kind of lightly towards the middle, leaving the middle untouched, and then we'll go in with our lighter color, the 6th one on the top row, into that middle area to add some texture with this also. Okay, we'll add even a little bit more texture with a very, very light color, the first one on the first row. We'll drop our brush a little to like 20%, and we'll maybe add just like a little bit of a highlighty section towards the middle here, blending it out very lightly at the edges, but it can be a nice highlight like so. Okay, then we're going to add the seeds on top of it. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a layer right above my strawberry layer below my chocolate layer. And we're going to grab our 7th color on the top row and our studio pen under the inking category. We'll have our opacity at 100, size pretty high at like 50. And we're going to go through and create some seeds with this. So I just tilted my canvas to help me a little bit, but we're just going to go push and make some kind of seeds, like a slightly up and down within the direction of the strawberry. Some bigger, some smaller, whatever works. Adjust your brush size if you need to, but a good kind of scattering. And they can go like under the chocolate layer as well, where there would be some poking out there. So just a good variety of that. That looks great for our strawberry. We'll add some more highlights and stuff probably at the end, and again, more shadows like I said, but for now, this is where we're gonna leave it. So now we're gonna move on to our chocolate layer. So on my layer menu, I'm gonna go to my chocolate layer, add a layer right above it, and we're gonna make our drizzle. So we're gonna use the same brush that we have the studio pen at a pretty high size, the 50%, but we're going to change our color to be our chocolate color, our dark chocolate color, the first one on the second row. And then I'm just going to tilt my canvas again to help me, so whatever works for you, but I'm just going to start kind of on this near the edge here, not going off the edge, and make kind of like a little swirl on it like this. Do that a few times till you get one that you like. You can kind of like vary your pressure a little bit to make it like thinner and thicker in areas, but I want to go pretty close to the edge so that we can see it when it's overlapped. Again, draw pretty quick to get some nice smooth lines. And then if you want to, you can go back and you can turn your other strawberry back on to just kind of check and see what you might be seeing. So I definitely want to go a little further. Maybe something more like that. So I think that probably looks pretty good with the other one on, so we can see it a little bit. Okay, so then we're going to add a shadow for this. So on my layer menu, I'm going to click on this layer and just turn on alpha lock because we're going to add highlights to it as well. So I'll turn on alpha lock before we duplicate it. So then let's duplicate it, grab the bottom one, click the N on this layer and set it to multiply. And then we're going to fill this in with a different color. So we're going to grab the last color on the top row, 8th in line, back to our layer menu, this bottom layer, click on it and click fill layer so it fills that other color. It's below this other one though. So we're going to select it with our arrow tool and then tap down and to the right a little bit to just get a little shadow coming out of it, like so. If you feel like it's maybe a smidge too dark, which I think mine is, I'm going to go to my layer menu, click the M on this layer to open up our options, and I might lower my opacity just a little bit to maybe like 70 to 80%. So just a little shadow coming from our chocolate there to show its kind of 3D effect. And then we're going to add some highlights back on our other chocolate layer. So find that, the top one with alpha lock turned on, the dark chocolate. And we're going to grab our kind of highlighted color for that, the second one on the second row. And we're going to go back to our drawing brush again, the Oberon brush. We're going to lower the size to really, really small, 2 to 3%. And we're just going to go through and add some kind of highlights through the middle of the chocolate to also add some texture. Just a little bit here and there, like so. Okay, then we're going to add some sprinkles as well. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer above the one that we're on right now. And we are going to use our studio pen again under the inking category. So go back to that to make our sprinkles, which we are going to make hearts. So we're going to start with our hearts. So we're going to use these two colors on the bottom row, the red and the pink here. So I'm going to start with the red, the first one on the bottom row. Same brush, adjust your size if you need to. I'm going to leave it at 50% and see how that goes. But we just want to make some basic little heart shapes kind of in any direction on the strawberry here, either over the chocolate, like either over the dark chocolate line or around it or whatever works. But not worrying about where our other one's going to be. We're just going to make this one on its own. So a few of the red, and then we'll switch to pink. So the second one on the bottom row, and do the same thing, some more hearts. Okay, and then we'll add some dots. So since I'm already on the pink color, I'll probably just start with that, but I'm going to make some little dots as well, pushing pretty hard to get a pretty good size dot. So if you kind of like tap the screen, it makes something really small. If you push a little bit more, it gets a little bit bigger. So kind of whatever size works for you. You can do a variety of sizes, but I'll start with the pink and then I'll go back in with the red again. So back to my first color on the bottom row, and same thing, they can be over the chocolate line, under it, around it, whatever. Just get some nice, good filling in going on there. Okay, so those are my sprinkles. Once we're done with that, I'm going to make a shadow for them. So on my layer menu. Okay, and then same thing as before, we're going to add a little bit of a highlight to this layer. So let's click on it and turn on alpha lock because we're going to draw within that before we duplicate it. So we'll duplicate it. The bottom one will be our shadow layer. So we just need to click the N and set it to multiply again, and then recolor it to that last color on the top row again. Back to our layer menu, click fill layer, arrow tool. I'm going to tap it just down and to the right, just a smidge. Again, maybe we'll lower the opacity. So back to our layer menu, click the M, lower to like 70%. But again, just a little shadow around those to make those pop a little bit. Then we are going to go back to our main sprinkle layer and add our little highlights to it. So we're going to use the bright white color for that this time, fourth one on the second row, and go back to our drawing brush again, the Oberon, at like really, really small, 2 to 3%, maybe even 1. And I'm just going to add a few little highlights to some of the sprinkles. Just kind of mainly on the hearts probably, to kind of like just add a little highlight to some of their corners, but you can do some of the circles as well. And you don't have to do every single one or every single heart even, just pick a few to add some little highlights to. And that is it. And the reason we turn on alpha lock is just in case we go outside the edges. So that keeps it all within. Okay, so that is the main part of our strawberry here. We're going to add our leaf now. So on my layer menu, I am going to add a new layer in this group, drag it to the very bottom. Hopefully it stays in the group. It might not. So if it doesn't stay in the group, I like to just drag it right above the strawberry, and then I drag the strawberry above it, and then it stays in the group. But we want to be at the very bottom of these layers. And we are going to grab our first green color, the fifth one on the second row, and actually go back to our monoline brush this time under the calligraphy tab. And I'm just going to start at the top here and make a little leaf shape coming out. So starting towards the right side, I'm just going to make a few kind of curved lines, meet back underneath it, and then we can fill it in. So do that a few times to get a good shape that you want. Again, going pretty quick to get some good smooth lines. Fill it in, or after you fill it in, you can always go back and like smooth it out or fill it out a little bit differently if you would like to. But that looks great. We're going to add the stem on a separate layer. So I'm going to go back to my layer menu, add a new layer, drag the new layer below the other one, or drag the leaf above that one so they all stay in the same group. Be on our bottom layer there, same color, same brush. We're going to add the stem just in the middle. So I did 4 leaves. If you did 3 or 5 or whatever, just somewhere in the middle. And I'm just going to kind of come off, go across, come back down, connect it underneath so we can fill that shape in. That's our little stem. Again, feel free to like smooth it out or anything. You can resize it. It's on its own layer. You can move it around or something, whatever works. But I think that looks great. Then on my layer menu, I am going to click on both of these layers and turn on alpha lock so that we can recolor them and add some shadows and highlights and details. So I'm going to start on my stem layer at the bottom, alpha lock's on. I'm going to grab my darker color next, the 6th one on the second row, and go back to our drawing pen, the Oberon brush, and increase my size to maybe like 5% or so. And I'm just going to add kind of a shadow near the base. So with these being the same color, you just kind of have to draw until you can kind of see the leaves start to kind of highlight themselves. So a little shadow in there, working my way up kind of lightly. Something like that. Then we'll add a little highlight with our next color in line, 7th one on the 2nd row. And I'm just going to kind of pick like the top side of the stem, kind of highlight that a little bit. Beautiful. Layer menu up to my leaf layer. Alpha lock's already turned on. We're going to go back to our shadow color first, the 6th one on the 2nd row, and we'll first add kind of a shadow near the strawberry. So I'm going to do right in there. Coming off of that, we're going to go into each leaf a little bit with like a little line. Nice and textured. And then I might do some of the edges of the leaves as well. So like the edges of the tops of the leaves on like maybe like the lower side away from the sun or where the light would be coming from, just to kind of add some more dimension there. Something like that. Then to our highlight color, 7th one on the 2nd row, and we'll just kind of add that in some of the open spaces. So kind of maybe like right in here, following some of the curves. Not necessarily going to the edge, but you can if you would like to, but just to add some more fun to it. Okay, very lastly, we are going to add a quick white highlight as well. So 4th color on the 2nd row, same brush. You can maybe lower your size a smidge if you would like to, but I'm just going to find a few more spots and just add a tiny little line just in a couple spots to add some more of a highlight. And then I'll do the same thing for my stem layer, go back to that with my white color just to add like another little kind of highlight there. Awesome. Okay, we are getting there. Just a few more things to do. I'm going to go to my layer menu and I'm going to snap those 2 green layers together if you're happy with them. Boom. And then we can go to our strawberry layer and we're going to add a white highlight to this as well. So I'm on my strawberry layer. I'm still on my white color, same pen, and I'm just going to pick like an edge to add this like kind of white detail to. So maybe just kind of something like this, like so. So our strawberry is almost done. We just need to add a couple shadows to it. So the first one's going to be underneath our chocolate. So I'm going to add one right above my stems or my seeds, and we want to clip it to our strawberry layer. So in order to do that, we need our seeds also clipped to our strawberry layer. So click the seed layer, set it to a clipping mask. So that means, I mean, they weren't drawn outside of it anyway, but if they were, they would cut off anything drawn outside of it. Add a layer above that, click on that and set that to a clipping mask as well. So they're both clipped to our strawberry shape. Click the N on this layer and set it to multiply and grab our last color on the top row. And our same Oberon brush, maybe at like 10% or so. And we're going to go right next to our chocolate here and add another little shadow there over our seeds and everything. Like so. That looks great. Okay, now we need a shadow on the whole strawberry, kind of on the underside here. So on my layer menu, we are actually going to snap some stuff together so that we can add it all to the whole strawberry shape. So if you're happy with everything and the way it's looking, we're going to snap everything together except for the green stem. That'll also help save us some layers since we're already up to like 13. Add a layer above it, click on it and set it to a clipping mask, click the N and set it to multiply. Same color, same brush, might increase our size a little bit to like 20. And we are going to add a good shadow kind of towards the lower end of the strawberry. It goes over all of our other stuff as well, off the right side. Something like that. Okay, it looks a little bit dark. I'm just going to go to my layer menu, click the M on this layer, and drag the opacity down a smidge to maybe like 50 or 60%, somewhere in there, so it's not quite as dark. We'll probably come back and add more to this when we have our other strawberry in place, but until then, we are going to stick with this. So this looks great. That's our completed first strawberry. So next up, let's go ahead and just turn on our other strawberry group, and we'll do the same exact thing. So let's start with our strawberry layer. Click on it and turn on alpha lock, and we're going to do our texture first. So Start with our fifth color on the top row, slightly darker than our base color. Same Oberon brush. We can stick at like 20 to 30%. And I'll go kind of next to the chocolate, around the edges, focusing a lot more on like the bottom, left side. Okay, get some good texture going lightly through towards the center a little bit. Then we'll grab our lighter color, sixth one on the top row, and work that through the center. Add some more light and texture there. Then we'll add our little highlight like we did on the other one. So we'll grab the first color on the top row and lower our brush maybe to like 20 to 15%. And kind of add another little blob of this nice highlight. A little bit different than our other one is fine. Like that's kind of why we made them separately. So I might make it a little bit more like towards the top here and kind of round it or something just so they're a little bit different. Okay, then we need our seed. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, add a new layer above our strawberry layer. Let's just click on it and set it to a clipping mask because we're going to need to do that anyway. But a normal layer, we'll grab our seed color, seventh one on the top row, back to our studio pen, and we're at 50% still, so we'll do our seeds. Again, just working up and down under the chocolate too, if that works. Something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our chocolate now. So on our chocolate layer, let's go ahead and add a layer above it. And this is where we'll do our drizzle. So that's going to be in our white chocolate color, the third one on the second row. And our same studio pen. And again, now we can see the whole thing. So start on the edge, do a nice drizzle, however you want it to look. Okay, I want a little shadow underneath it. So layer menu, click on this layer and turn on alpha lock with our drizzle because we'll come back and add some highlights to it. But first we're going to make the shadow. So duplicate this layer with alpha lock on, grab the bottom one, click the N and set it to multiply, and then grab our last color on the top row and go back and click fill layer. Arrow tool, tap it down and to the left a little bit or move it with your pen. And last time we lowered the opacity, this time we probably won't because it's on such a dark color. It doesn't look that crazy, so that looks good for our shadow there. Back to our layer menu, back to our drizzle layer, and we'll add some highlights through it with this fourth color on the second row and our Oberon brush again. Back under the drawing category. We'll drop our size a bit to maybe like 5% and kind of go through the center again, adding a little bit of a highlight and some texture. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and add our sprinkles. So on my layer menu, another new layer above the one that we're on. Let's grab our two colors on the bottom row again. So starting with the red, first one on the bottom row. Back to our studio pen under the inking category, same size as before or whatever size works for you. I'll start with my red hearts. And again, not really worrying about what we did before too much, but try to maybe match like the sizes a little bit. So, okay, so I'll do a good amount of red ones. Back to my pink color for some of those. Okay, and then we'll do our dots. So I'll start with my pink. And then I'll go back to my red. Something like that. So do a good variety, and then we need a small shadow for those as well. So layer menu, click on this layer first and turn on alpha lock before we duplicate it. Grab the bottom one, click the M and set it to multiply. Back to our last color on the top row. Click on this layer, click fill layer. Arrow tool, tap it down into the left a little bit. Get a little shadow showing around those. Then back to our top layer with our sprinkles on them to add the quick little white highlights. So we'll grab our fourth color on the second row. Back to our Oberon brush. Really, really low, 2 to 3%. And just kind of touch some of the corners of these and some of the circles to add some little highlights to them. Okay, awesome. That is it for that part. So lastly, we need our leaf layer, and we did leave it separate on our other one. If you wanted to, you could duplicate it, and I think I'm going to, so that we don't have to draw the whole thing again, and it'll help them make them look kind of more even and stuff in our like heart shape. So on my layer menu, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this last leaf layer at the very bottom here in our other group. Drag that one into our new group if it'll snap in there right under our strawberry layer. Then we're going to grab it with our arrow tool. We're going to click flip horizontal, and we're going to drag it on over here. You might need to rotate it a little bit more to get it to kind of line up nicely with your strawberry at the top there, but do what you got to do to kind of get it in place. And that looks great. Okay, we need the shadow still and the little highlight on our strawberry. So let's go to our strawberry layer again, grab our bright white color, fourth one on the second row, which we should be on, and our Oberon brush, which we should be on at like 3 to 5%. And we'll add just a little highlight again on the strawberry here, wherever you see fit. Just add a little highlighty section to just give it some more kind of character. You can even add some along the other side as well. You can go back to your other one and do the same thing, whatever you want to do. Okay, so now we just need our shadows on our top strawberry. So the first one we're going to create is going to be right above our seeds layer. Click on that layer and set it to a clipping mask, and click the N and set it to multiply. Grab our 8th color on the top row and our Oberon brush at like 10%. And we'll go through and add a little shadow right next to the chocolate, above the seeds, following our little wavy pattern. Now is where we snap everything together to add our final shadow. So we're going to snap everything aside from the leaves onto one layer in this group. Add a layer above it, click on it and set it to a clipping mask, click the N and set it to multiply. Same color, same brush, maybe increase to like 20% or so. And we'll go over the whole kind of left and bottom side. And again, just being on this darker color, it doesn't look quite as dark and crazy as our like vanilla one did. So this one might be fine left as is. So that looks great. That being said, I am going to go back to my previous shadow layer on my white chocolate one and add to it. Now that this one's in place, I'm going to add a little bit more to the side next to it, so it looks like it's kind of casting a shadow on that one as well. Okay, that being said, that's it for our strawberries. So they're a little big on mine. They might not be on yours, but if you want to move them around or resize them at all, we can just select both groups. So the group there, arrow tool on uniform, downsize them all a little bit and kind of recenter them here, again, more towards the bottom so we have a little bit more room above them. The last thing is just the finishing details of the little hearts in this and diamonds in the sky, finishing off the background and adding a shadow underneath them. So let's go ahead and add the shadow underneath them. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer, drag it to the very bottom of all of my layers, right above my background layer. So if we minimize our two groups, it should look like this. We have a layer right here. Click the N, set the layer style to multiply again. Same dark color that we're on, the 8th one on the top row. And we'll actually grab the selection tool, set it to ellipse, and turn on color fill. And then this will help us draw like either a perfectly vertical or horizontal oval. I'm just going to go ahead and start kind of off to the left side here towards the bottom. Draw a good skinny horizontal oval. Nothing too huge, and we can move it around and resize it too in a second. So just a good size like this. Grab it with our arrow tool. On uniform or freeform, you can resize it. Let's go ahead and like center it, move it around if you need to. Kind of place it right under the strawberries here. Nothing too huge, just kind of where they're like touching the ground. Then we're going to blur it a little bit. So wand icon, Gaussian blur. We'll drag this up a smidge to like 10%. Okay, let's go ahead and finish off the background. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add another new layer, drag it below the layer that we just created. So we're right above our background color again. Grab our second color on the top row now. So we're going to finish off our background. So second color on the top row, and grab our soft brush under the airbrushing category, this big one at the top. Opacity is at 100, size is at like 50. And with this lighter color, we're going to go through the middle. So I'm going to go right around the strawberries in kind of a circular motion, like so. Then we're going to darken up the edges a little bit with the same idea. So I'm going to grab the third color on the top row and same brush and everything. And I'm just going to kind of go around the edges in a circular motion now to kind of deepen up those corners or bring back in the light a little bit if you did a little too much. But we just want kind of some good framing around it like so. Okay, then the very last thing to do is add some details to the sky. So let's just go ahead and add a new layer to the very top of all of our layers. Let's grab our almost bright white color, the third one on the bottom row. And our studio pen again under the inking category, if that works for you. So again, we're just going to draw some hearts and some diamonds. So I'm going to start in the middle and just kind of draw like a heart shape, kind of smooth it out, whatever works. Go off to the left here a little bit and draw another one. And maybe off to the right and draw another one. Something like that. So 3 hearts, and then we'll do some diamonds. I might lower my size a bit to like 20%. And again, depending on how hard or light you push, you might want to use a different size. But I'm just going to go through and make some little kind of plus signs to be my little diamonds. Nothing too crazy. You can do the like where you connect them in the middle with like a curved line. You can go and add that as well, or thicken up that middle area. Whatever works, but I'm just going to do a little bit of this around my hearts there. Just keeping everything kind of in this general area, but nothing too crazy. Just to kind of finish it off. So once that's done, that is it for our drawing today. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you like the way that yours turned out. I hope that you maybe learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below letting me know your thoughts. The likes and comments really help out my channel to show my videos to more people, so I really, really appreciate it. And go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, if you want to see more tutorials from me in the future. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it there and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.